In my last deliberation, I was talking to you about uh, Buddha for the first time was represented in anthropomorphic uh, form as a human being, and the Greco-Roman style, Buddha is being depicted in the images as you can see it here. And then we find what happened to the state, the religion, Buddhism, under the Kushanas. Kushanas ruled over India. It was till 375 AD, prior to the Guptas, and their rulers adopted elements of Hellenistic culture. They are coming from that culture, Hellenistic culture of Bactria and that of Indo-Greeks. So these Kushanas were adopting the elements of Hellenistic culture of Bactria and that of Indo-Greeks. During the Kushana rule, Buddhism received impetus to be at the height of its influence. Buddhism was in a flourishing state. A significant number of Buddhist centers were built during the Kushana rule. The Buddhist art of Kushana period, also known as Gandhara art, was a synthesis of Greco-Roman, Iranian and Indian elements. Because the art forms which we get today, from that if we study those, we find there is a combination or a synthesis of different forms, the Greco-Roman forms, the Iranian forms and the Indian forms mixed together, that made a different kind of art form known as the Gandhara art. Emperor Kanishka, the emperor who is the most influential emperor of the Kushana dynasty, ruled over India from 128 to 151 151 AD, was particularly known for his support to Buddhism. Kanishka supported Buddhism like Ashoka. During his reign period, several stupas, several monasteries were built in the Gandharan city of Peshawar. Peshawar now is in Pakistan. Kushan royal support and the opening of the trade routes allowed Buddhism to spread along the Silk Road to Central Asia, the Tarim Basin, and thus it was making an inroad to China. For the first time we find Buddhism started spreading along the Silk Road, which was a trade route connecting Asia with Europe. So along the Silk Road, Buddhism also traveled to Central Asia, the Tarim Basin, and thus this was the entry point to going into China. Kanishka is also said to have convened a major Buddhist council in Kashmir. Kanishka invited 500 monks who are learned, and allegedly during this council there were altogether 300,000 verses and over 1 million statements were compiled, and it took 12 years to complete. I don't know how far it is true, but the traditions record that during this period, during this Buddhist council, 300,000 verses were compiled and 9 million statements were made. These were all compiled, and it took almost 12 years to compile this whole data. Buddhism after the Kushanas. The Kushanas ruled for some time, I told you the time period, and then after Kushanas, what happened to Buddhism in those areas? After the fall of the Kushanas, Gandhara region was ruled by smaller kings, smaller kingdoms, and later we find the Huns. They are known as White Huns. The Huns conquered the area around 440 to 670 AD. Under them, Buddhism continued to thrive, and it was mostly in the cities like Balkh, that is Bactria. As mentioned, we got the information from the travelogue of the Chinese pilgrim Wen Sang, who visited the region in the 7th century. There were over 100 Buddhist monasteries in the city, because from the Chinese scholar Wen Sang's account, we could know that there were 100 Buddhist monasteries in the city, including many stupas inhabited by monks. After the end of the Huns, Buddhism in Gandhara, however, continued to thrive for some time in the adjacent area in the Swat Valley of Pakistan, Gilgit and Kashmir in Afghanistan. But altogether, after some period, it had to cease. There was no influence of Buddhism during that period. After that, the unified Kushana Empire helped Buddhism to grow, easily to spread along the trade route of Silk Road, as I said, and throughout Central Asia during the 1st century AD under the Kushanas. The Sravastibada school is another school of Buddhism, flourished in the region. Some of the monks were also bringing Mahayana teaching with them. From there, Buddhism spread to Central Asia. Buddhism spread to Central Asia through the Silk Road, which carried, because the Silk Road from China to the Europe, from Asia to Europe, it was carrying goods between China, India, Middle East to the Mediterranean. Since Buddhism was there in the region for about 2nd century BC, 2nd century AD, it didn't take long to become an important region in the area. The kingdom of Khatun was one of the earliest Buddhist kingdom in the area and helped transmit Buddhism from India to China. It was very significant moment. It was a very significant event in the history of Buddhism, that Buddhism along the Silk Road spread into Central Asia, and from Central Asia it made inroad to China. During the 1st century AD, under the Kushanas, Buddhism eventually reached modern day Pakistan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, etc. As Buddhism reached many of these lands, Buddhists began to translate and produce text in local dialects and local languages, such as Khotanese, it is an Iranian dialect, Shogdian, also Iranian, Ulgir, Tibetan and Chinese. In the different languages, these Buddhist things got translated for the use of the passengers. Central Asia played a very significant role in transmission of Buddha or Buddhism to China. The first translator of Buddhist scripture into Chinese were Iranian, including the Parthians, who ruled over in 148 AD. The Yuji Queen and the Kang Shingakai from the Samarkand, they were instrumental in the spreading the Buddhism in China. As many as 37 early translators of Buddhist texts, majority of which have been translated from Iranian cultural sphere, Zoroastrian and Sassanian Empire, it is from 226 to 651 AD, eventually ruled over many of those regions like Parthia and Sogdia, where Buddhism were being tolerated and revered. During the mid-7th century, when the Islamic conquest happened in Iranian plateau, Iranians followed by the Muslim conquest of Afghanistan and the establishment of Ghaznavid kingdom in Central Asia, which is from 977 to 1186 AD, it led to the decline. It led to the decline and eventual disappearance of Buddhism from the most part of this area. Buddhism, however, flourished in the eastern part of Afghanistan, eastern part of Central Asia, in Chinese Turkestan, Tarim Basin, where both Indians and Iranians lived in major cities. The region revealed rich Buddhist works of art and Buddhist texts. The Uyghurs conquered the area in 8th century and belonged and blended with the local Iranian people, observing the Buddhist culture of that region in its local way. And from all this, we can conclude that this region had rich Buddhist works of art and Buddhist text. Ceridian art is a reminiscent of the Gandhara style. It is just like the Gandhara style. The Uyghurs conquered the area in 8th century and blended with the local Iranian people, absorbed the Buddhist culture of the region. They were later absorbed by the Mongols, Yuan dynasty. Many printed Buddhist texts from this region date to Yuan, and they were printed in Uyghur, Sizia and Sanskrit languages. The Uyghurs also restored the cave temples and repainted the Buddhist wall paintings, such as at Bejeklik. Uyghur Buddhism was the last major Buddhist culture in the eastern Turkestan, and it lasted until the mid-14th century. After the Islamization of Xinjiang, Buddhism ceased to be a major religion in the area. Otherwise, Buddhism would have come to this part of the world much earlier. When Buddhism was making inroad to China, and Buddhism, the state of Buddhism in Central Asia we are discussing, and how Buddhism suffered because of the Islamization of that area, and how it started declining in that area, though it made an attempt to make an inroad to China. That time what was happening in India? In the heartland of India, Buddhism continued to flourish under the Guptas. The Guptas were the dynasty, is a very big dynasty, which ruled India from 4th century to 6th century AD. Gupta rulers like Kumaragupta, who was ruling from 414 to 455, that is 414 to 455 AD. Kumaragupta supported and enlarged the Nalanda University, which was already there, and this became the largest and most influential Buddhist university in India for many centuries, where scholars from different parts of the world were coming to study. The great Buddhist philosopher, whose name was Dignaga, taught his new doctrine there in Nalanda, and Nalanda remained a central place for the study of the theory of knowledge. The influence of Gupta style of Buddhist art spread over or spread along with the faith from the Southeast Asia to China. During this period, Chinese pilgrim, whose name was Fayan, they say it in Chinese, the Chinese pilgrim Fayan also visited India to study Buddhism. Similarly, there was another famous Chinese traveler whose name was Xuanzang. Xuanzang also reached India after the end of the Gupta rule in 4th century AD. His travelogue reported all these things. And he has written that Buddhism was very popular in Andhra Pradesh, Odisha and Tamil Nadu. These are all southeastern states southeastern states. While reporting many deserted stupas he found in and around the present-day Nepal, and the persecution of Buddhas by the Shashanka, who is not a Buddhist king, he started persecuting the Buddha things, and it was during the time of Shashanka. He is a ruler from Gauda. Gauda is the present-day Bengal. Shashanka was not liked by, or Shashanka did not like the Buddhists, so it was perhaps Huensang visited when Shashanka's rule came to an end. Despite political uncertainties and the rise of many feudal powers, Buddhism continued to flourish under the Palas. Palas were the regional rulers from 8th century to 12th century AD. They were ruling over the present-day Bengal, West Bengal or East Bengal, both parts. Buddhism once again came to the center stage under the Palas. The Palas were very staunch supporters of Buddhism. They built several important Buddhist centers like Bikramshila and Sompura. They also supported many other stations, many other centers of Buddhism like Nalanda and Bodh Gaya. It was at these great Buddhist universities that scholars elaborated the philosophies of Abhidharma, Madhyamaka, Pramana, as well as the study of linguistics, medicine, astronomy, music, painting, sculptures. Thus Mahayana Buddhism flourished and spread to Tibet, Bhutan and Sikkim. So we find that under the regional powers, even under the powers not very important in the Indian, pan-Indian history, the Palas who were ruling over only the Bengals, they supported many Buddhist establishments, and during this time many Buddhist scholars were visiting the Buddhist universities to study, and thus the students who were studying over there, they were from Korea, they are from Japan, they are from China, they are from Tibet. So these people continued to study there and learn about this Buddhism, and gradually went back to their own country to have their own thing. Now, this way, Mahayana school of Buddhism flourished, and it started spreading beyond India, spreading to Tibet and Bhutan and Sikkim.